Good day, everyone. So, this will be another discussion in our subject assessment in Learning 2. So, for today's discussion, we are going to tackle about the grading and reporting. So, let us first discuss or elaborate the quotation. So, I am sure that everyone here can relate to this quotation. So, it says here, It says here, you got an F in all your subject, and how can they call this a progress report card? So, based on the author's experience, both as a parent and as a school head, grades are very contentious. So, there is no card giving day where there is no parent complain or question about a child's grade. So, complaints come in this form. So, for example, the grade should be higher or it should not be a failing grade. Teacher does not explain well, or teacher did not accept a project submitted an hour or so after his or her deadline. So therefore, grading and reporting as a way of communicating assessment results should never be taken for granted. So we cannot blame students and parents for their grade consciousness. So one is still a role that puts emphasis on grades. So when you enroll in a college course, you have to meet a minimum grade point average that is required. When you apply for and enjoy a scholarship grant, you have to meet a maintain certain grade. And when you apply for a job, you have to present your grades because of all the things that people ask. Grades are always a part. So grades are um indeed important. So but the competencies that grades should reflect are as important. So it will help students to get good grades if teachers discuss assessments and grades before conducting the assessment. So reviewing the test results with the students after assessment test is important also. So however, communicating with students as a class or individually before assessment is equally important. So, here are 7 things to consider discussing with your students before assessing. So, we have here number 1. Explain where the test fits in the bigger picture. So, any given test or assessment in just one piece of their overall progress as students. So, this one test in this one day is not the sole measure of their potential or their future. So, a better understanding of context will help them understand how it all fits together. Number 2 is share how the test results will affect their overall class grades. So, students are unaware why they are being tested or why the teachers need the data they are looking for. So, is it going to be used for setting student or class goals, or establishing a grade, or for placement purposes? So, share this information with your students before the test so that they will understand clearly what the test score will mean to them. So number 3 is preempt questions about what their data will look like and who will be seeing it. So depending on the age of your students, you should consider sharing with them what results you'll be receiving after the test. So what results they as students will receive and what will be shared with their parents. Take the fear out of the testing jargon. Words like evaluate, criteria, evidence, and scores can be scary for some students. So while they may be seem obvious and interchangeable to you as a teacher, it can help students if you explain these terms to them and set their minds at ease. Next is we have clarify the testing environment. So some students are less familiar than others when it comes to testing and how testing schedules can interrupt a given week. So providing a better clarification if it will be a one-day test or if it will happen over a period of days. So provide insights into breaks, whether they can use the restrooms and what they should bring with them on testing days. Next is make any transition to computers or tablets easy. So if there is a computer lab being used as part of the testing process, be sure that they know where the lab is, how the computer will be used as part of the test, and how to log in. Next and lastly is provide the dates of the next assessment. When you explain growth over time to students, it helps to share a basic schedule of how the assessments will be administered. So let them know when the next one will occur and whether it will be similar to the one they are preparing for. So these are the 7 things you need to consider in discussing with your students before assessing. Number 1 is again, explain where the test fits in a bigger picture. Next is share how the test results will affect their overall class grades. Next is preempt questions about what their data will look like and who will be saying it. Take the fear out of the testing jargon, clarify the testing environment, make any transition to computers or tablets easy, and provide the dates of the next assessment. So let us now proceed to the functions of grading and reporting systems. So grading and reporting systems have some very important functions in the educative process. Some of these important functions are: number 1 is enhancing students' learning through clarifying instructional objectives for them, or showing students strengths or weaknesses, or you can also use providing information on personal social development, or enhancing a students' motivation, whether it is a long-term or short-term goals. And lastly, indicating where teaching might be modified. So this can be achieved through the day-to-day test and feedback and integrated periodic tests. Next is reports to parents and guardians. So grading and reporting systems also inform parents and guardians of students on the process of their wards. So likewise, grades and reports communicate objectives to parents so they can help promote learning and communicate how well objectives were met so parents can better plan. Next is Next is the administrative and guidance uses. So the administrative and guidance purposes of grading and reporting consist: number 1, helping to decide promotion, graduation, honors, or athletic eligibility. Next is reporting achievements to other schools or to employers. And next is providing input for realistic educational, vocational, and personal counseling. So these 3 main purposes of grading and reporting by no means exhaust all possible use of the activity. So the main point, however, is that grades and report cards should promote and enhance learning rather than frustrate and discourage students. So in many schools, report cards are given to students and then parents are asked to sign these report cards. So most schools call for parent and teacher conferences or set aside card getting day for this purpose. Now we have the components of grading system. So according to Irashan and Russell, 2008, cited 3 components of a grading system. Number 1 is standards of comparison. So in relation to standards of comparison, the following questions are asked. So what standard for comparison will you use for grading? Or this is what we called the or will you compare a student performance to other students performance? So this is also called the norm reference grading. Or will you compare it to what a student is able to do, or a learning potential, or self reference? So if we go outcome based or competency based, we will be for criterion reference grading. So the predetermined standards are the intended learning outcomes presented and explained at the beginning of every lesson. Next is we have the aspect of performance. So this is the second component of a grading system. And for example is, what aspects of performance must be graded? So this is the number 1 question when we are talking about the aspect of performance. One group of educators claim only academic performance must be graded. So this academic performance to be graded include quiz and test results or the paper and pencil test, assignments, products and performances to show process learned. So for example, oral reports, projects, interviews, or even the portfolios. So another group of educators asserts that in addition to academic performance, students' motivation, effort, and participation should also be graded. So one of the problems in grading students' motivation, effort, and participation, however, is the difficulty in determining the reliability of effort and motivation. Next is the weighting different kinds of evidence. So this refers to how much weight is given to different aspects or components of a student's grade. So let us now take a look at the weighting of the different kinds of evidence in the DepEd grading system issued in the DepEd order number 8 series of 2015. So we have here the components, the language, the ESP or the science, the math, and the MAPE. So in the components, we have the written work, the performance task, and we have the quarterly assessment. So when it comes to language or the AP or the Araling Panlipunan, the weighted average or percentage in a written work is 30%. In a performance, it is 50%. In a quarterly assessment, is 20%. When it comes to sciences, we have the 40% in a written and 40% in the performance. In a quarterly, we have the 20%. But when it comes to math or MAPE, the performance task weighted the most compared to the written work and the quarterly assessment. So it's better to familiarize yourself with the grading system of DepEd. Next is we have the components for senior high school. So again, this is the components when we are grading the grades 1 to 10, while here we are using this in grading the senior high school. So we have the core subjects, academic, and the tech voc, and livelihood, sports, arts, and design track. So it's better for you again to familiarize with the components of each core subjects, academic, and the tech voc. So an analysis of this table from the DepEd puts the heaviest weight on the performance task from grade 1 to 10 and from grades 11 to 12. So as you can see here, from grade 1 to 10, the highest percentage is the 60% given to music, arts, or the physical education and health, or the MAPE. And in the ESP or the edukasyong pangtahanan at pangkabuhayan or the livelihood skills in a senior high school, the highest percentage here is also 60%. Understandably, for the specialization subjects for the tech, sports and arts, and etc. The next question is, why communicate assessment results? So we document our assessment processes for accountability, institutional, and individual memory. So documenting the decisions made means learned lessons. So the assessment results that have been thoroughly discussed should be communicated clearly and accurately to learners as well as parents for improved learning. So sharing assessment results is an opportunity to tell an important and meaningful story. So your role as a teacher is to educate stakeholders about the context, backgrounds, the method, results of the assessment, and to involve them in making sense of the results and identifying possible solutions or what to do in the next steps. So this can be done during the parents teachers conference. So some pointers in communicating assessment results. So in order to effectively communicate our assessment results, we need these following. Number one is to establish learning outcomes related to what we are assessing. Number two is to document the process we use to assess the outcomes. Tie the results back to our learning outcomes to communicate whether the program or service worked as we intended. And next and last is to take note of decisions made as a result of the assessment process. So this is the essence of outcome-based teaching and learning. So we all agree that students are key education stakeholders. So when they are involved in the assessment process and in their own learning, the result is an improvement in achievement. An objective, transparent, and respectful assessment feedback to students drives home the points which the students need to work upon. So again, these are the pointers in communicating assessment results, or in short, in communicating their report card or grades. So you have to establish learning outcomes also, of course, to make sure that it is related in their performance and actual performance. So you have to document. So don't forget to document all the process you made or the process you conducted during the assessment period. Next is to tie the results back to our learning outcomes. So you have to determine if the results is connected or related to the learning outcomes you are measuring, and then take note of the decisions made as a result of the assessment process. Now we have here also the giving feedback to students and parents after the assessment. So of course, giving feedback is never easy. We are all agreed to that. So it is important that the feedback process is handled delicately. So below are some points that can guide the teacher as an assessor during the feedback. So number one is we have a cliche which works effectively is to open the session with a positive feedback. So to make sure that if you conducted or giving feedback to parents or to students, to make sure that you open your statement with a positive feedback, and then followed by the next feedback. Know the expectation of the student parent from the feedback session. So it acts as a compass for the teacher as an assessor. So if you have the parent or student parent conference, you have to make sure that you open the floor with the expectations, or asking the expectations of the parents as well as the students. So be very specific and stick to the predefined parameters or competencies to make reference. Next is to cite examples whenever possible to help the student's parent understand better. Next is involve the student parent. So feedback has to be a dialogue and not a monologue, which means that the student or the parent should be given an opportunity to discuss students' parents' aspirations or the motivations and experience of the assessment. So be patient and display great listening skills to create the required trust and rapport with the student parent. So to make sure that you listen very carefully to what the students or parents are sharing to you during the teacher and student conference. Next is allow the student or parent to explain the intent behind in her action and differing opinion whenever appropriate. And then refrain from passing a judgmental statement. Your statements have to be suggestive rather than stated as absolute truths. So even if you have a point in giving feedback, to make sure that in giving your statement, it should not be judgmental, but of course be respectful and based, of course, in your own observation in the performance of your students. So in connection in giving feedback, the feedback provider has to remember that feedback is also a mechanism to learn for people. So let us make a reference to the Johari window. So if you are familiar with the Johari window, it is much better, but if you're not, you better listen. Okay, so the feedback should help the students or the parents become aware of both their areas of strength and areas for development. So it should encourage students and parents to do introspection, help students parents to draw inference and reach conclusions. So people are very good at hiding any feeling of hurt and upset. So, however, beneath the facade lies a demoralized and demotivated individual. So, for example, some students might start thinking, if that is what I am like and I'm really going to get where I want? Or is this what they think of me? Or such situation requires very careful handling of feedback, or else it can become the road to frustration. So if the desired level of trust does not exist between the teacher and the student parent, feedback discussion becomes very difficult and the purpose of feedback is defeated. So if teachers share the outcomes and the feedback with the student parent without allowing discussion or comment, the feedback session becomes a fiasco. So where the students' parents do not share hopes, aspirations, or intrinsically commit to their development actions, no further progress can take place. So it helps if the teacher knows the profile of the student parent beforehand, as it later helps in navigating the feedback discussion appropriately. So this results in a greater acceptability of the feedback. So as you can see here in Johari window model, we have here the open area, which is known to others and known to self, and the blind spot, which is not known to self. We have also here the hidden area, which is not known to others and not known to self is the unknown. So you can use this activity during the student parent conference. So I know you are very familiar with this in when reporting students' progress and grades to parents. So usually in reporting the progress and grades to parents, this is done through giving the report card, the parents teachers conference, and written conferences. So number one is we have the report card. So the report card is a standard method of reporting students' progress and grades to parents. So here is the example of the report card for junior high school and senior high school from the Department of Education. So as you can see here, we have the name and the information of the students and on how you will report the progress and achievement of your students. And also it includes here the learners attendance and your comments and the parents guardians signature. So for a meaningful reporting of students progress, the meaning of grades is given. So this is the following. So we have here the descriptors. When we say descriptors, this includes the outstanding up to the did not meet expectation, and then the grading scale and the remarks. So the report cards convey letter grades like for example A, B, C, D, and F, and sometimes with plus or negative. So a student may get an A plus or or A negative or B plus and etc. So some report cards naman convey numerical grades such as the 85 in math and 93 in English and etc. So still other report cards simply have pass or failed. So the DepEd student report card include affective characteristics such as makajos, makatao, and makabansa, and makakalikasan. Next is we have the written progress report. So this can be weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly reports of the student's progress and achievement. So these written reports may include the student's performance on tests and quizzes, projects, and oral reports. So they also include information about the student's motivation, cooperation, and behavior as well as suggestions for how parents can help the student improve his or her performance. So this is the example of the student progress report. So as you can see here, we have the comments and the parent signature. Next is we have the parent-teacher conferences. So according to Durham, asserts that parent and teacher conferences are both a responsibility and an opportunity. So the education of the learner is the primary responsibility of the parents. In this task of educating children, parents are assisted by the school. So for the benefit of the children, then it is best for teachers and parents to come together to discuss their children's progress. So the parent-teacher conferences are a perfect avenue for this purpose. So it has been a practice of school to set aside a day for report card distribution, which is at the same time the opportunity for the parents and teachers to confer regarding their child's performance. So these are the reminders for school teachers to get the most parent-teacher conferences. Number one is to announce the date for card giving in advance, or better still, the school calendar, which should be given at the beginning of the school year, must already include the dates for card giving and parent-teacher conferences. So parents are busy and can just be there at the school's beck and call. Next is be positive in approach. So start the conference with something positive and maintain the positive atmosphere. So there's always something good in every student. So even if a student has performed poorly, try to find at least some areas in which the student has performed well. Next is be objective. So while you should be positive, be truthful and honest. Give an accurate picture of a student's performance in order not to give a false hopes to parents. So have a listening ear. So act with empathy. Parents are parents. So always remember that. So they will tend to favor their children. Next is don't project an omniscient image. So you don't know all the answers to questions. So refer the parents to the right person. So for example, the physics teachers, if the problem is the child's performance in the basics. So please refer your students in the concerned person. So practice good communication skills. So communicate criteria for grading. Have a dialogue, not a monologue. So where the only one talking is you or only the parent. So don't talk about the other students. So the focus of the parent-teacher conference should only be the parent's child. Never compare the child with other students. Next is end with an encouraging note in the same way that you began with a positive note. So it is not the end of the world. So these are the reminders for school teachers to get the most parent-teacher conferences. Last but not the least is why report communicate assessment results. So we document our assessment process for accountability. So teaching leads to assessing, learning, reporting, and communicating assessment results. So these assessment results should be communicated clearly and accurately to learners as well as parents for improved learning. So sharing assessment results is an opportunity to tell an important and meaningful story. So your role is to educate stakeholders about the context, the backgrounds, the methods, results of assessment, and to involve them in making sense of the results and identifying possible solutions or next steps. So this is the reporting. So we all agree that students are key education stakeholders. So when they're involved in the assessment process and in their own learning, the result is an improvement in achievement. So an objective, transparent, and respectful assessment feedback to student drives home the points which the students need to work upon. So again, so this is my takeaway. Again, so grades have four purposes, that is the administrative, the informational, motivational, and guidance. So when we say administrative purposes, this is the grades help determine students' class rank, credits for graduation, whether or not a student gets promoted to the next grade. So the second one is we have the informational purposes. So the grades can be used to communicate with parents, students, and others how well a student has realized learning and course outcomes. The third purpose is the motivational purposes. So many students are more motivated to study in order to get high grades or to avoid low or failing grades. And lastly, we have the guidance purposes. So grade helps students, parents, and counselors select appropriate courses for students and levels of work for students. So that is all for today's discussion. So I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, you can message it in our official group chat. So again, please finish the recorded discussion because I indicated here your performance activity. So thank you very much and see you in the next discussion. So this is the lesson 10 performance activity. So again, answer the following questions. This is consist of 80 points. Put your answer in the comment section below by following the format. So you have to put your name, the block or the cluster, and your answer. Again, the deadline would be on July 18, 2023 until 8 p.m. only. So again, I will repeat, the deadline would be on July 18, Tuesday, 8 o'clock p.m. only. So this is the questions. Number one is, teacher tells her students, it is you who make your grades, I just record them. So don't blame anybody else if you don't make good grades. Do you agree? Why or why not? Explain your answer. Second question is, when it comes to giving grades, some teachers are madamot or stingy. Others are overgenerous. How can this be avoided? Next is, teacher A claims the problem with parent-teacher conferences is those parents who are most expected to come. For example, the parents of non-performing students usually do not attend. How can schools solve the problem? Propose solutions.